So my goal today and my goal in my book is so my book does not, my book and my talk today, where I'm going to talk about my book in the abstract, riff off it, connecting it to, so in my book, I have what I call my book. This is the goal of my book, How Propaganda Works. Now, I think one thing that is important to remember, and in my book, and one thing I'm doing in my book, I mean, one of the main figures in my book is Richard Nixon. My book is in its third printing in Brazil. Now, I wrote my book. In my book, I talk about, in my book, I range extremely widely. I talk about, so I'm going through, so what I do in my book is I give you the last chapter of my book, and I talk about that in my book. So that's a big, one chapter in my book is called My Book on Nixon. So I'm, again, my book's not about fascist government, it's about fascist politics. I learned that in doing the research for my book. So the wisdom of the Black American tradition guides me in my book. In my book, there are 10 chapters in my book that I say in my book. In my book. When I was writing my book is about what I mean by ideology. I did an author meets critics on my book. And this is the theory I take in my book. I discuss a lot in my book. What I try to do in my book. My book is final chapter in my book. My book isn't about my book. So my book's being translated in 8 languages in my book. So a lot of my book is this quote my book. Like my book came out, they translate my book in 3 weeks, as I say in my book. So my book is my book. Now in my book, you'll see the final chapter of my book. I don't think my book couldn't be my book, or I talk about this in my book. The last chapter of my book, the book's has had a wide international audience. It's been published, or will be published in 11 languages.